Welcome back to NFL Nexus. We are standing right on the precipice of a completely defining era in Denver. I mean, the 2026 NFL season is looming, and for the Denver Broncos, the stakes have absolutely never been higher. The margin for error here, it is practically zero. We're looking at a franchise trying to navigate just a brutal gauntlet of defensive masterminds, ruthless salary cap realities, and these fierce, violent roster battles that are literally going to define their future for years to come. This isn't just another season. It's a highly volatile, high-stakes chess match where every single move, every dollar spent, and every play called carries immense franchise-altering weight. So, before we uncover the intense drama unfolding right now at Mile High, make sure to subscribe to the channel, drop a like on this explainer, and comment down below on what you think about the Broncos' looming decisions. And hey, if you want to support the deep, cinematic dives we do here, please consider becoming a channel member.
Everything changed in a matter of seconds. The sudden, harsh reality of the NFL is that one single decision made behind closed doors, it can alter the entire trajectory of a billion-dollar franchise. A sudden shift in power, a literal passing of the torch. But the lingering question casting a massive, suffocating shadow over this entire organization is this: can a rookie play caller actually survive the ultimate test? Or is the immense pressure of this league going to crush him before he even gets started?
Okay, let's dive into Section 1. The incoming gauntlet, a brutal early stretch.
The shift happening within the Broncos coaching staff behind the scenes is nothing short of seismic. You have Sean Payton, a Super Bowl winning head coach, a man whose entire legacy in this sport is built on offensive mastery, meticulous route combinations, and just aggressive, calculated play calling. And yet he is making the choice to hand the offensive keys to Davis Webb. Now, Davis Webb is a complete unknown variable at this level of responsibility. He has exactly one game of play calling experience in the National Football League, and it was a meaningless 2025 preseason tilt against the Arizona Cardinals. In that game, the playbook was incredibly vanilla. We're talking basic inside draws, simple curl flat reads, zero motion against third-string linebackers. Handing over the primary duties of a highly complex NFL offense to a man whose resume is that razor-thin, it's a staggering, potentially fatal risk. It's a massive roll of the dice in a league that famously does not forgive inexperience.
Which brings us right to Section 2, Trial by Fire, the defensive masterminds.
Because Webb isn't just taking over a standard schedule here, he is stepping into a literal murderer's row. I want you to let the weight of these specific defensive matchups sink in for a second. Week 1, you open against Steve Spagnuolo and the Kansas City Chiefs, a man notorious for bringing zero blitzes on third down and heavily disguising his safeties specifically to force rookie play callers into absolute panic. Then, Week 2, Anthony Campanile with the Jaguars, whose aggressive run fits are going to brutally test Webb's early down scripting. Week 3, you face Chris Shula and a bitter division rival in the Los Angeles Chargers, where the emotional stakes are naturally tripled. Week 4 brings Raheem Morris and a heavily armed San Francisco 49ers defensive front. Morris uses a stunting front seven specifically designed to confuse offensive line protections and completely blow up backfields. And then, in Week 6, you travel into one of the most hostile environments in football to face Mike McDonald and the Seattle Seahawks. McDonald's simulated A-gap pressures literally won a Super Bowl by confusing the greatest offensive minds in the sport. This is not just a schedule, it is a relentless, exhausting gauntlet precision-engineered to break a first-time caller.
Now, obviously, there is a fail-safe built into this grand experiment. Payton wouldn't have made this monumental move if he didn't implicitly believe in Webb's bright, young football mind. I mean, Webb was a head coaching candidate in 2024 and 2025 for a reason. Players rave about his football IQ. And the reality is, Payton is still going to be there. He's going to be a voice on the headset. But think about the specific dynamics of that headset. The NFL strictly cuts off coach-to-quarterback communication when the play clock hits 15 seconds, right? So in those final agonizing 15 seconds, Webb is on his own. If Webb starts to drown in those first 6 weeks, if the offense completely stalls and the home crowd turns, how long until Payton feels the visceral urge to just press the button and take the wheel back entirely? The tension on that sideline is going to be incredibly palpable.
But there is a very specific, strategic micro-reason for this move. It's all about the cognitive load on the franchise quarterback, Bo Nix. Over the past couple of years, Webb has built an incredibly tight bond with Nix. More importantly, Webb is intimately aware of the operational flaws from 2025. Nix genuinely struggled with the sheer volume of verbiage in Payton's West Coast system. It just took way too long for play calls to come in. Last year, Nix was routinely getting to the line of scrimmage with barely 8 seconds left on the play call clock, forced to rush his cadence, entirely unable to identify the Mike linebacker or scan the secondary for disguised coverages. Webb has reportedly already streamlined that communication process. He is translating Payton's lengthy terminology into fast, digestible concepts. He's intentionally trying to take the heavy mental processing off his quarterback's shoulders so Nix can simply drop back and play fast. Honestly, if Webb can unlock Bo Nix by merely shaving 3 or 4 seconds off the play call delivery, this massive gamble might just pay off.
Moving on to Section 3, the salary cap question, the Evan Ingram dilemma.
As we transition from the high-wire act of the coaching staff down to the roster construction itself, we slam directly into cold, hard financial realities. Survival in the modern NFL requires ruthless, unfeeling financial math. $14.14 million. Just let that number hang there for a second. That is not just a statistic on a spreadsheet. Think about the opportunity cost of that money. $14 million is the cost of 2 elite interior offensive linemen. It is the cost of a top-tier double-digit sack edge rusher. Instead, for Denver, it is a massive financial anvil tied entirely to tight end Evan Ingram for the 2026 season. And look, Ingram simply did not impress in 2025. He lacked explosiveness out of his breaks, and in a league governed by a strict, unforgiving, hard salary cap, paying over $14 million for underwhelming, replacement-level production, that is exactly how you slowly, painfully sink a franchise.
Now, what's really interesting about this breakdown is the escape hatch built into these numbers. If the front office decides they've seen enough dropped passes and missed blocks after training camp, they absolutely hold the power to execute a post-June 1st cut. Yes, if you go down this path, you have to swallow a highly painful $7.67 million dead money charge. You're basically paying a player millions of dollars to essentially walk away and not play for you. But look at the bottom line, $6.47 million in immediate usable cap relief. Why does that specific $6.47 million matter so much? Because in the NFL, unused cap space carries over directly to the next season. Cultivating that carryover for 2027 is an absolute necessity for Denver's long-term vision, especially when you're looking down the barrel of market-resetting mega extensions for your foundational players.
And here is the brutal truth about Ingram's current standing in this building. He is highly unlikely to return in 2027 when his deal automatically voids anyway. Yes, he has $5 million in fully guaranteed money this year, but smart NFL front offices, they no longer care about sunk costs. The Broncos have proven time and time again that they are perfectly willing to swallow that guaranteed money and just absorb the hit if they decide a player's tape no longer fits their schematic vision. They won't hesitate to pull the trigger. A trade? Well, maybe they find a desperate suitor for a late-round pick swap, or maybe they actually eat the $5 million just to facilitate moving his contract to another team, but those scenarios remain extreme long shots. The reality is, Evan Ingram is skating on incredibly thin ice.
Let's look at Section 4, roster battles begin, the pressure of June OTAs. That immense financial tension from the front office, it trickles all the way down to the dirt and sweat of the practice field. The high-level executive pressure is currently colliding with fringe roster players fighting for their absolute livelihoods during summer OTAs. This specific battleground is where the Evan Ingram situation will actually be decided. It's a classic, age-old NFL war. Expensive veteran sunk costs against cheap, hungry rookie potential. Ingram and Adam Chapman currently sit at the top of the depth chart, but right behind them, literally breathing down their necks, are rookies Justin Jolly, Dallin Bentley, and Caleb Lohner. And Jolly and Lohner have already been turning heads. In rookie minicamp, Jolly was consistently finding the soft spot in cover 3 during 7-on-7 drills, showing remarkably fluid hip turns. Lohner is using his massive frame to anchor blocking assignments against starting edge rushers. Now, the Broncos genuinely don't want to rely on unproven rookies, but if these young tight ends continue to catch seam routes and win at the point of attack with flawless hand placement, Ingram's massive cap hit makes him entirely expendable.
Actually, scratch that. Let me clarify. It is absolutely vital to separate the real OTA storylines from the mirages. There are certain elements of football you simply cannot evaluate at the month of June. For instance, Bo Nix is recovering from a cleanup procedure. His true lower body mechanics and readiness won't be tested until training camp. Jalen Waddle's integration into the playbook and his precise timing with Nix on deep crossers, that requires full-speed live-action reps. You literally cannot fake top-end speed in shorts. And the running back rotation, you absolutely cannot evaluate the ground game without the brutal collisions of full-padded July practices. J.K. Dobbins, R.J. Harvey, and Jonah Coleman have the top spots locked, and the bloody battle for that final spot simply cannot be won in shorts and t-shirts.
But out on the boundary, that is a distinctly different story. This is a high-stakes, hyper-technical battle with massive future implications for the entire defense. You have incumbent Riley Moss going up against year 2 first-round pick Jahdae Barron. The Broncos have an elite defensive back trio right now with Patrick Surtain II, Jaquan McMillian, and Moss.
But McMillian and Moss are entering contract years, and with a mega extension looming for Bo Nix down the line, Denver mathematically cannot afford to pay everyone. Barron must prove he was worth that first-round investment. Look, you draft a cornerback in the first round to be a lockdown boundary asset. He played as a rookie, sure, but he didn't unseat the starters. Now, the clock is ticking. First-rounders are expected to start, and if Barron is sitting on the bench in year 2, it becomes a glaring, massive red flag for the general manager's drafting record and job security. Barron needs to show immediate, undeniable progress in his press man technique to give this front office some long-term clarity.
Down in the trenches, there's a gaping void. John Franklin Myers took a 7.5 sacks and his relentless interior pressure straight to Tennessee. Replacing that violent production requires a collective physical toll. It takes a village. Zach Allen is your undisputed anchor on one side, but opposite him, it is a violent, chaotic scramble. You have veteran run stuffer Malcolm Roach, Ioma Uwazurike, and rookie third-round pick Tyler Onyedem all fighting tooth and nail for critical snaps. Onyedem's draft profile is fascinating, by the way. He has incredibly heavy hands and raw, overwhelming power, but his pad level requires deep refinement before he can consistently shed NFL blocks. You won't get the final answers on this defensive line until the pads come on and the offensive line starts combo blocking, but make no mistake, the mental reps, the stunt timings, and the initial pecking order are being ruthlessly established right now. And then there is the battle for the final linebacker spot, which features, honestly, one of the most fascinating underlying storylines of this entire roster. The top 3 spots are firmly locked by Alex Singleton, Justin Strudd, and Jonah Ellis. But that 4th spot? You need to keep your eyes entirely locked on Red Murdoch. He is this year's Mr. Irrelevant, a 7th-round pick who slid purely due to injury concerns. But here is the genuinely shocking fact. Murdoch left college as the FBS all-time leader in forced fumbles, with 17. 17! Are you kidding me? 17 forced fumbles? That is an absurd metric of defensive disruption. He's a highly intelligent, high-motor, violent player with a masterclass skill in separating the football from the carrier, utilizing this crazy Peanut Tillman-esque violent rake of the football. He's going head-to-head with priority free agent Torian York and a host of veterans who just lack his specific turnover traits. Murdoch is exactly the kind of deadly, hyper-focused contender who fights his way onto a 53-man roster via special teams and absolutely refuses to leave.
Finally, Section 5. The clock is ticking, the proving ground awaits.
When you zoom out from these microscopic battles in the dirt and you look at the macro level of this franchise, the pure gravity of the situation sets in. Every single one of these hyper-specific decisions, handing over the play calling to a total novice, navigating the brutal salary cap casualties of veterans, the desperate need for rookie development, every single piece is directly tethered to a relentlessly ticking clock. The margin for error is totally gone. June OTAs? They're just the preamble. They're a dress rehearsal played out in shorts. The true violence, the final brutal decisions that will either elevate this storied franchise back to glory or sink it into irrelevance, await the end of summer. Late July is when the pads finally go on. Late July is when the real war begins.
The proving ground awaits. With jobs directly on the line, millions upon millions of dollars at stake, and a brutal, unforgiving early season schedule looming in the shadows, who will actually survive? Thank you so much for watching NFL Nexus. If you want to keep tracking this intense, highly detailed journey through the 2026 season, make sure you hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this explainer, and tell us down in the comments who you think wins these massive, roster-defining battles. And again, support our deep dives by becoming a channel member today. We'll see you in the next one.